You know, gun sales commonly spike around disasters like hurricanes or after terrorist attacks, and it appears that's no different during this coronavirus pandemic. Firearm background checks, we're told, are way up compared to 1 year ago, that according to the FBI. Last month, the Bureau conducted more than 2.8 million checks. At the same time, though, last year, that number was about 2 million. Law enforcement officers are concerned that panic buying could lead to more tragedy.
What we're trying to discourage is panic gun buying. That is a worst case scenario because you have now a bunch of people that are normally not all crammed into a house confined together, and at some point in time when tempers start flaring, people that are unfamiliar with a new handgun, the new shiny toy, we're going to expect to see an increase in domestic violence with tragic results.
Well, Bernard Zapor joins us. He's a retired ATF special agent in charge, also a faculty associate at Arizona State University. Bernard, we just heard panic buying, fear. Look, fear is understandable. It is driving more gun sales, but is that wise?
Hi, Eric. Thank you for having me. Unfortunately, the metrics demonstrate that en masse firearms and ammunition hoarding, the outcome usually is people with no firearms training, no safety experience, and no general knowledge about firearm danger. There will be accidental discharges. There will be an increase in suicide. Additionally, most people don't realize that they are not going to be able to return this merchandise once they start to feel normalcy or safe. They're stuck with it. And some people spend a lot of money buying this equipment and then they have it. And so what ends up happening in the longer term is that material ends up into the gray market.
How about those who say, look, it's the only way that I know I can protect my house. You know, I don't know if the police are going to come. I don't know what the social structure, infrastructure will be like. I need a weapon, protect my loved ones and my family and my property.
Absolutely. And it's an understandable reaction. Our Supreme Court has spoke to the Second Amendment, but it's also the responsibility of every single person that is going to possess a firearm to get some modicum of training in the safe handling, the safe storage, because unfortunately our number 1 and 2 firearms death in the United States are accidental discharge, oftentimes by children, and suicide.
Here's what one of the gun organizations talks about, a coalition against gun violence, saying, quote, the consequence of these panic-induced purchases in response to COVID-19 could be a tragic increase of preventable gun deaths for the loved ones these individuals are trying to protect. While it is understandable to seek what you feel can be protection in the times of upheaval, you must acknowledge the risk that bringing guns into the home pose and take all appropriate measures to mitigate that risk. That's a coalition against gun violence. Echoing what you're saying. So let's say you're a new gun owner. You can't go out of your house and get lessons. You've never taken lessons before. You just bought one and brought it home. What do? You lock it up without the ammunition in a safe so the kids can't get it. You put the ammunition someplace else. What steps would you suggest to our viewers right now, to dad who may have just brought a gun home, who basically has no training or experience at all?
Well, it starts at the retail level because the federal firearms licensee is a very responsible industry, and they will demonstrate and show safe handling and operation to anybody that purchases a firearm from them. If they're going to a firearms retailer, they can get the basic training and understanding without even firing the weapon there, and that's really important to have that. Secondly, I'd also add that
and in terms
people have to assume. Oh, I'm sorry, Eric. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry, we have a bit of a delay because of the new technology we're working with. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would say also that people have to understand, and this goes with law enforcement officers. It's something the military spends a tremendous amount of training doctrine on, is that the finger never goes on the trigger unless one is going to shoot the weapon. So people mostly get their firearms exposure to television and movies where they always have their finger on the trigger. And when you look historically at accidental discharges, at gunplay that resulted in tragedy, people had their finger on the trigger, and that is the one thing that every person can remember. The finger stays off the trigger unless it's time to fire. But your retail dealer, a very responsible industry, will show you the basic handling, storage, and use of the firearm, even if you don't have an opportunity to fire or practice with a licensed firearms instructor.
So finally, as a seasoned law enforcement officer, what do you suggest? What is your advice?
For everybody to take the time to know what they're doing with that firearm and realize that it is completely an instrument of lethality. And unfortunately, it is a self-critiquing event. So there is no second mistakes in firearms handling. There is only one.
That's wonderful advice and something for people to keep in mind during this very difficult time. Bernard Zapor, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.